Hi, I hope you guys are keeping well. Today, excuse me, we are doing an autobiography. In fact, this is an extract of autobiography on page number 48. Unfortunately, we used to have a separate supplementary book on the diary of Anne Frank. Um, um, I don't know why was that removed by CBSE, but nevertheless, this is a small extract or basically a gist of about her life. What we are reading today is, I think it's one of the first. I cannot say this is the only example, but this is at least one example of human rights violation during the Holocaust years of anti-Semitism in the Nazi rule of Adolf Hitler. The Holocaust years are termed as years starting from 1933 to 1945, one of the darkest periods in the history of the world, where the atrocities of the Nazis were just beyond imagination for particularly for the Jewish community and all the Jews who were who used to live in Germany and Netherlands, and other parts of Poland, other parts of the world, had to suffer during the Nazi rule, during Adolf Hitler's rule. The story that we are reading today is an extract of an autobiography of an extraordinary girl, a 13-year-old girl who could not survive to see what happened after the World War ended and after the intervention or the interference of United Nations peacekeeping troops was the highest example of civil rights violation that we can ever imagine. So this 13-year-old girl, Anne Frank, is a Jew. Her family is a Jew. Her father was Mr. Otto Frank, who was a businessman, and mother Edith Frank was she was a housewife, a homemaker. And Anne Frank had an elder sister called Marie Frank, and the story starts as that this was a happy, prosperous family who were trying to live in Germany, in Netherlands, and then during the Nazi rule, there were certain impositions by Adolf Hitler, or particularly on the Jews community, where he basically his objective was to eradicate Jews from the world. In fact, not only from Germany or other parts of the Nazi-dominated countries, but from the world. So there were certain do's and don'ts, laws, or rather, I should say, rules given for Jews. And one of the rules was that as a Jew, I'm just giving you a brief introduction about what is going on in the story. Is that as a Jew, you cannot own a business. Otto Frank, Anne Frank's father, had a sausage making business, and then he had other businesses as well. He was forced to consolidate all the business. Basically, as a Jew, he could not own a business. They could not own, Jews' children could not go to the same school as non Jews. They could not talk to non Jews. They had to wear a yellow star on their coat or on their clothes so that they could be easily identified as a Jew. They could not shop from the same store, departmental store. They could not buy food from the same store as a non Jew. They had separate stores. They could not use public facilities like a movie, theater, or public toilet, or a taxi. And the children had to go to separate schools, Jew schools. And they could not come out of their house after 7 o'clock in the evening. They could not talk to non-Jews. So the restrictions gradually started increasing day by day. So this was just the beginning of the atrocities that we will come to know when we read the story. And so somehow the Frank family, they consolidated their business, and when they moved to Germany, things became worse. So Mr. Otto Frank was lucky enough that he sold all his business, and because he had confident, I should say, honest, faithful employees, that he transferred all his property in his employer's name. Under a different name, he changed his business. And now the time came when Jews could no longer hold the patience, and things had become worse. So everyone was trying to leave Germany. Everyone was trying to migrate, or I should say, just to go, to save their lives and their families' lives. But the Fang family decided not to leave. They created a scene where it looked like that they have left for Switzerland, but they did not. And the Frank family decided to stay back in in Mr. Otto Frank's office building. In the attic. Attic is the topmost room, just below the house. You have these roofs like this. Sometimes these roofs are made of they have terracotta or ceramic mm, uh, uh, lining in the form of tiles. But in the Western countries, most of them have steel roofs, steel coverings. So they decided to hide themselves in the back room of the attic, where no one could come to know that somebody is living there. In fact, a big family, and they in fact invited some other friends also to live with them, Jew friends, and they managed to stay there, hide themselves there for more than 2 years, almost 2 years, until one day they were discovered by Gestapos, or the soldiers of Adolf Hitler. So this is how the story starts. A very sad ending, but it was an eye opener for the rest of the world. This is only one story that you and I have come across, but there are so many Anne Franks, so many unheard stories of Anne Franks who died in the Holocaust. Anneliese Marie, no, I'm so sorry. Anne Frank's sister's name was Margot Frank, not Marie Frank. Margot, Margot, T silent, Margot. Anneliese Marie Anne Frank was born on 12th of June 1929, somewhere between February and March. February, and she died in March 1945. She was a German born Jewish girl who wrote while in hiding with her family and four friends in Amsterdam during the German occupation of the Netherlands in World War II. So she was a Jew. And how do we come to know about Anne Frank? Who told us the story? Who's telling these stories? It's because she had a habit of writing her diary, maintaining a diary. Some people are very, I should say, very punctual. To write their day to day activities or things they experience in the whole day. They do jot it down or write down in a diary, which is almost like a living proof of what happened in their life. And sometimes it's very nostalgic, very emotional to read those terror stories. We came to know about, you and I are sitting here and reading about something which happened in 1940s because of a young uh, girl, Anne Frank, and her diary, through her diaries. Her family had moved to Amsterdam after the Nazis gained power in Germany, but were trapped when the Nazi occupation extended into the Netherlands. And as prosecutions against the Jewish population increased, the family went into hiding in July 1942 in hidden rooms in her father Otto Frank's office building. This is what I was trying to say. After 2 years in hiding, almost 2 years in hiding, the group was betrayed and transported to the concentration camp system, where Anne Frank died of typhus in Bergen-Belsen within days of her sister Margot Frank. Her father, Otto, the only survivor of the group, returned to Amsterdam after the war ended, after the World War finished, to find that her diary had been saved. Her diary was saved by one of Mr. Otto Frank's employees. And convinced that it was a unique record, he took action to have it published in English under the name The Diary of a Young Girl. The diary was given to Anne Frank for her 13th birthday and chronicles the events of her life. She's written everything about whatever happened in her life from 12th of June 1942 until its final entry of 1st of August 1944. It was eventually translated from its original Dutch into many languages and became one of the world's most widely read books. These have also been several films. Sorry, there have also been several films, television, and theatrical productions, and even an opera based on the diary. Described as the work of a mature and insightful mind. She was only 13, but she had a mind which made sense. The diary provides an intimate examination of daily life. This is just an eye opener. I think it's almost like looking from a window where you can understand and experience what must have happened to all those Jews. I think there are degrees of and there are different ways to die. um, so we'll come to know about different degrees of death under Nazi occupation. Anne Frank has become one of the most renowned and discussed of the Holocaust victims, that someone who could not survive. So this is just, I hope you understand, I'm just reading, but in case if you want me to explain, I'll just go through it. It's just telling about what happened. The concentration camp, I'm just going to read about some of the things, is that the concentration camps, basically this is just what I told you, are these concentration camps were, for the world. These were portrayed as places where the Jews were living very happily, and whenever there was an intervention by the United Nations peacekeeping group, or they always used to portray, and they used to send these videos where Jews are playing and they are indulging in different kind of activities, although they are held hostages, and their children are going are taught in the concentration camps. But this was all a lie. The reason why they were kept in concentration camps is so that they could build it, and once the structure was erected, once all the work was done, people who were infected by the disease, they would die. There were no sanitary conditions. They had to live in these huts with under 0 degree temperature, with no clothing, no food, almost no food, and no heating facilities. Most of the people, most of the Jews who were in the concentration camps died of hunger, starvation, and different diseases like typhus. Anne Frank and her sister Margot, they died of typhus. And with no lavatory facilities, no facilities for defecating. So basically they used to defecate and live in the same place. And this is very emotional, whenever I'm teaching this chapter. And Anne Frank's mother, when she died, she died of starvation, because of lack of food. There was no food, and she was died. When she was found, she was found with a piece of food, a bread. She must have saved for her children. The Frank family was divided. When they were sent to the concentration camps, they were all sent separately. The children were sent to a different concentration camp, the mother to a different camp, and the father to a different concentration camp. So never got to see each other, meet each other after that. So and but before they went when they before they went to the concentration camps, it says that they were into hiding, they lived in into hiding. And so the question is that how did they survive? There, as I said, that they had a group of faithful employees who would, when there's a war, food is that scarce. You cannot just go and buy food from a departmental store, like how we do that right now. Things are quite complicated. And so you get, you are rationed for everything that you want to consume. And in that process, what they used to do is that, because they are into hiding, so they cannot buy food. So his employees used to encash the ration coupons, and that's how they used to get food, their monthly or weekly ration, into hiding. Um, I mean, I I think you and I cannot just imagine living into hiding for such a long time. I think every human being in the world, everyone in this world has become frustrated, and they have lost their thinking senses, half of their thinking senses, because we are living in lockdown. Um, Imagine how it would be if you have to live like that for 2 years, with a constant fear that you will be caught and killed. So, this is how the story starts. Page number 49. Do you keep a diary? This is a question. Given below under A are some terms.